Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, and welcome once more to another episode of Reno by Night. Today our scene is set as Father Riccardo Alvarez steps off of the plane in the Reno airport. It is nighttime, and it has been a very long trip from Vatican City, but he returns triumphant. His ghoul is waiting for him with a car already, and as he gets inside and they begin to drive once more towards his beloved haven, his ghoul begins to update him on what has transpired while he has been away. It has been relatively quiet in Reno, which is good. The other kindred whisper amongst themselves about the current absence of a prince, and after securing the support of his elders in Vatican City, the good father made sure to give the signal to his ghoul, and who in turn contacted the right people. By now, all of the kindred of Reno should know that there is a new prince, and that he already has the support of the seneschal. What worries him right now is the letter he has from Alex Blackmoon as he looks it over again. He does admire that kindred. She has a grip on subtlety that he has yet to master himself, and that is saying a lot, as the crown prides itself on its subtlety. When need be, of course. But as the lights of Reno pass by, the neon signs, street lights, lights from the buildings of the many, many kind who go about unknowingly to the supernatural horrors that still lurk within their streets. He has a pang of nostalgia. He realizes that he has a feeling now that he has not felt in a very long time, since when he first came to Reno, back when he was but a lowly cleric in the Nox theocracy, back when he was a servant instead of a prince. Back then, he always felt discomfort traveling the streets of Reno. It's something that he learned to hide very well later on, after all. He does pride himself on his subtlety, but he never ever grew comfortable with it. And if he could put a name on his feeling, his discomfort, it would be that he always felt like he was being watched. That this city was just as much of a facade as the masquerade the kindred put up to walk undisturbed among their prey, as if this was all some sort of giant elaborate trap, and that every single smiling face, every single downtrodden soul, every single person who walks into the casinos to forget the troubles of life through sin and vice were all just pretending, and that they were all something else. Now, as prince, he smiles to himself. He wonders if that feeling will go away, if maybe within the next 100 years he will become accustomed to the feeling of Reno, or perhaps time will tell that his discomforts were correct. Very shortly now, the car pulls up in front of the church, and the two get out. It is already under construction. The signs are up. He learned very well from his predecessor, and by the end of the year, hopefully, the night church will be even more grander than his predecessors could dream. A sprawling complex beneath the city itself. A dark heart for the kindred society, a bastion of both faith and security. It has been a very, very long journey. So, before dismissing his ghoul for the night, he gives him his assignments. He is to contact Diedrich Graves and Emma Bellefleur. They were brought up in the letter, and he fears that they might have not lived up to his expectations. But again, he did not have the highest expectations for them. They are neonates after all, but there is potential there. And he must be very careful these next few nights. For it is one thing to declare Praxis and seize Praxis, but to hold on to it, that is an entirely different story. He dismisses his ghoul now, heading back down to his private study in the night church. And it is there that he begins to contemplate how he is going to hold Praxis. He's going to need allies, certainly. Mr. Falcone may be the linchpin to claiming the city, but he is going to need all the allies he can get. Perhaps it is time he settled the hatchet, buried the hatchet between himself and Miss Blackmoon. After all, he does already respect the lady. And now that he does have the princedom, the threat she posed is so far away, but yet still potent. If she is of the same mind as Falcone, which he suspected she would be, and which he suspects even more now after her letter, then he should have an ally in her. But there are others he's far, far more concerned about. The sheriff, Carl Voltaire. The other prefects, Philip Kent. And John Stanhope, the former Prince of New Sarum, who, if what rumors around town are to be believed, is not in the most fit of states to run a princedom, but nonetheless, he was a prince, and he has no idea what his current ambitions are, for he does know he is also one of the lords. He needs someone he can call a confidant, somebody close. Perhaps it is time he checked up on his old friend, Father Frost, the High Inquisitor of Reno, one of the original founders of the coterie for the city, back when he was such an insignificant part of this city. Perhaps their mutual hatred of the Sabbat will be the cement that will form this mutual friendship, kinship as it were. For his skills are great, but he would be a far better scourge than a sheriff, no. Perhaps he will call on some of his allies to see if there are any kindred floating about right now. Someone who might be more fitting as sheriff than Mr. Voltaire. After all, he knows so very little about this man. If he could be called a man anymore, the rumors about him alone are enough to chill even kindred blood, which, as everyone listening knows, is ice cold. He is certainly one who will not find value in the services of his faction, and because of that, he knows he may be one of the greatest threats. It may be simpler just to add him on by him, but from what he has heard from Falcone, The man seems to want almost nothing at all. That is his biggest concern right now. And then, of course, there are the outside threats. The strange disappearances, the memory loss. Is it the work of just one kindred, or is this just the symptoms of a greater Sabbat incursion? He knows that they have their eye on Vegas, but they know so very little. They need to take control of the situation. He and Alex Black will need to talk at length about how they're going to deal with the Sword of Cain's presence, for they have been a thorn in Reno's side since he could remember. And if they are indeed planning another incursion, they will be far, far more creative than their last crusade. Prince Fromm's handling of that would have made them never underestimate Reno again. I suppose that was one of the charms of the former prince. It's at that point he realizes that nostalgia from earlier really hasn't left him. Smiling, he gets up and walks over to his desk, sets the letter down, and retreats for the night to his own personal coffin. It has been a very, very long journey, and he is very tired. Everything is in place. All he need do is be patient, just like he was taught. And Reno will be his. And that, dear listener, is where the scene will end.